Hey everyone, James McBride here. Again, your instructor for this course. We're going to go through the first unit. Glad you're in class. And I'm going to share my screen here. Now, normally what I do is I share a screen with my presentation open. Um, and that's because I would like sometimes to just jump right into a browser and I can just pull it up and I know that you're seeing that browser. So yeah, this is not the fancy way of displaying it and all that. I just click on down through this so that if I want to show you something on the web, I can just come down here and pull it up. So if you don't know, I'm running this on a Mac and I use Mac and Windows all interchangeably. I use Linux interchangeably with that. Um, I won't get too much into why I do that. I just get bored, honestly, and like to use them all. But in this particular instance, I use it because the honest truth is video streaming and screen streaming and everything just is a lot cleaner. I usually don't end up with hiccups in the video, so that's why I'm doing it. You may see other videos, and I'm on Windows. That's what I'm telling you. Probably won't be showing Linux in this class. All right, we're going to take a look at your cyber safety journey. This is the course to really help you out in your personal safety online. So real quickly, unit overview here. We focus on understanding the things you do every day that need to be secure, the assets that you use online, the personal data that you have that needs to be secured, and why those basic security habits matter to you. That's a whole idea, and I'm assuming that's why you're taking the course. Is you're this? Oh gosh, I mean, there's so much going on online, especially now with AI. It's like, what components am I supposed to be worried about? When do I know that I'm doing something that's actually, as far as privacy or security goes, actually not good? So that's what we're going to take a look at. You don't have to have any advanced knowledge in it. This is not for IT pros. That's cybersecurity. Instead, it's for the average everyday user. I teach cybersecurity courses, but I have to do these things myself. So here's the learning objectives. I'm just gonna, pause for a minute. Actually, you just pause the video for a minute because just reading them off is a little boring because that's what we're gonna be going through right here. All right, cyber safety as opposed to cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is really for the big business. It's for any business, really. It doesn't matter how big it is. But it's about organizations, infrastructure, networks, servers, systems, which are broad. So they're not talking about PCs. Those are end users or end client systems. It's about corporate compliance with government restrictions. It's how does this particular operating system get hacked? How does this particular type of networking get hacked? How do we defend against that? It's huge. It's an area within IT. Cyber safety is really focusing on you, your personal practices, what you're doing on a daily basis that may be good or bad, so that you know by the end of this course, I know how to keep myself safe and I know how to help others. And that is a big issue, right? We all have parents, we have grandparents, we have aunts and uncles. We've got kids that we think, oh, they get it and they're so easy. They just get the technology. I don't know how many times I've heard that. And I can tell you as an instructor in computers and IT, that is not the case. They know very well how to use whatever little app they want, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. They don't even know that Snapchat records everything that they do and only deletes it for them and the other person. They don't even know that. So there's people we can help out, and that's a big thing. And hopefully you'll be able to do that after this course. All right, so what are some of these digital assets? What are these things in your life? Well, I remember a time when digital information about us was really not that big. If I look back and think about the systems that were around when I was a kid, they would have known a social security number, my age, my name, where I lived, and that's it. They wouldn't have known what I looked like. They wouldn't have known my likes and dislikes or any of that. Now, geez, when you really think about your day and where you're communicating, most of it's online. And so that means those digital assets of pictures you're posting, where you're at, apps you're using, accounts you're logging into. There's, 80% of your life now is out here in these digital assets. So you've got your personal identity, things that just can identify you, online accounts like email, social media, banking, financial info, which, we really usually try to keep pretty good track of, which is credit card and bank details, payments and stuff and such. And then something that's really, really normally very important to us, which is the files we store out there. In particular, that one, photos. We take photos, 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 and how do we know that those photos are safe? We take around these mobile devices that have more information on us, on them, than our PCs at home, than this Mac has about me. This phone has much more information about me than this Mac sitting here. And yet we don't treat it that way. Lots of people will be like, "Oh, how do I secure my Mac? How do I secure my Windows machine?" It's like, have you thought about securing your phone? Because that's the first thing. And so most of us are like, "Well, I've got a cloud account. That way, if I drop this thing in the water and it gets all screwed up, my photos are still okay. The documents and videos that are really important to me are out there on the cloud." We'll talk about where that comes from, that term. And so all these things are the digital assets that are really important to us. Therefore, key component here, really important to hackers. If losing it would cause you harm, inconvenience, or financial loss, that's a digital asset. So you need to broaden out from here and realize that when you're accessing something online, think about what would happen if I lost this? Oh, I don't care. I'd get it off a website. Well, it's a digital asset, but it doesn't matter too much for you. However, other things do. So just use that as the rule of thumb. All right, so what is your everyday threat surface? So given these assets that you need to protect, how do hackers get to them? And that's really what's meant by this threat surface, also known as an attack surface. How can they get to it? Well, home Wi-Fi is one of the ways. People would be surprised how easy it is to get into people's Wi-Fi, and that usually happens because it's just poorly configured. So we have a whole unit on this is how you configure Wi-Fi at home, and this is why it's a danger, and this is what you do to make sure that you're doing everything you can to protect yourself. Personal devices, as I said, smartphones, what do you need to do? It's got the most sensitive data on it that we have. What do you need to do with your smartphone to make sure that that data is not going to leak out someplace? Again, those cloud accounts are available. How should you put it? The attack surface is big. Anywhere in the world, they can try to hit your iCloud account. Anywhere in the world, they can try to hit your Gmail, your Microsoft, your Amazon account. Anywhere in the world, a hacker can hit that information. They're not stopped from that. And so this is a big, big surface. It has to be secured. And then, of course, public networks. What that means is that you're out there and you want to attach to MIC Wi-Fi over at McDonald's. Lots of people, we used to do this all the time because cell connections were so bad. That's why we used to do it. But cell connections are pretty dang good now. But most people have realized, and if you didn't know this, here's a tip for you. When you're accessing the cell network and you're sending data in and out through the cell network, you're burning through your battery quicker. Now, the reason why is because the cell tower is out there someplace, maybe 10 miles away, maybe 20 miles away, maybe 2 miles away. It takes a lot of energy for the phone to transmit that kind of signal. It takes a lot. That's why a lot of people be like, "Oh, my phone's getting hot." Now, well, you're using the cell network, and that's taking a lot of power from the battery. And what happens is the battery dissipates very quickly then, and it's getting hot when that happens. And so many people know, oh, I can just attach to this network. This happens a lot when people travel. For instance, hotels right here. Hotels and airports are the big ones. So you go down to the airport and you're like, well, I showed up an hour and a half early. I got like 2 hours before this plane, takes off, and I'm not near a plug. I can't, those are always, there's always somebody that's hogging those. And so you're sitting there and oh, well, if I just start browsing the web on the cell network, then my battery is just going to go down. I'll have 50% by the time I get on the plane. So instead you go, oh, where's the Wi-Fi network for the airport? I'm on it now. Here we go. Well, it depends on how they set it up, whether or not that's actually a good thing to do in both of those places. Coffee shops, a lot of people don't do that anymore, but those are the worst. Those are the ones that usually they just stick a Wi-Fi router in there. They didn't set it up that well, and this can expose your computer or your phone to an attack. These are usually set up pretty well, but we'll get into that. All right, so what are their goals? Well, obviously money. We all understand that. They're going to hack me because they're trying to steal my money. What a lot of people don't understand is that your data is worth a lot of money too. And they go, I don't get that. Whether or not I drove this way to work or that way to work, I don't understand why that. Well, guess what? It's important to somebody. And there's all sorts of things that are tracking you, which we get into, and hackers want that data because they can sell that data to somebody. And of course, identity theft is part of that. And then account takeovers, which is why they would try to steal data. That's a whole nother reason why to steal this, because then they can gain enough information on you to take over your email account or your social media account or your banking account. And honestly, in this class right now, there's probably at least two people that have lost access to their original email because it got taken over, or they had to create a whole new social media account and tell everybody that one's not me because their social media was hacked. Attackers are not trying to help you. Their goal is exploitation. So let's talk about two-factor authentication, often labeled as 2FA. So you often see that, two-factor authentication. So one factor, we get into this more, just to let you know. So this is just like a little brief as we get going. Type 1 is something you know. A password, a PIN, security question. Basically, they're saying there's different ways to look at how you authenticate, how you actually say, this is who I am. That's what authentication is. This is who I am. So something you know, like my login name is jamesmcbride@yahoo.com. That's something I know. My password is this. That's something I know. So when you put in your user ID and password, you're using one type of factor. Type 2 is something you have, like a phone. And this is what we really use, these two types. Now it's broadening out from there, but again, we'll get into that later. We use these two types right now. So you put in a user ID and a password, and if you've never logged in on that physical device before or through that web browser, what it's going to do is say, oh, well, I need to send you another factor. And how they do that is normally through a one-time code. And it's usually going to a phone number. So that's the typical way that they do it these days. But it might go to an email. There's other ways to do that as well. But basically, at that point, you're using two factors. Type 1, you know your user ID, you know your password. And then type 2, you have the phone that you're receiving that code on, and you're proving to them that you have that phone when you type in the code. Now, to move on beyond that, type 3 is something you are. So fingerprint or facial recognition. So I've got the phone. That's something I have. Something that I am is the picture, and now I can get into the device. Right. So I'm using two-factor authentication just with this phone here. Then other things that are coming up, these other factors, where you are, when you are, what time it is. But most modern authentication systems combine at least two of these, at least two. And there's a major reason why. There is definitely why. Without multi-factor authentication, this is what happens. You're using your user ID and password only. So if somebody can gain what your user ID is and what your password is, you got a single point of failure. It's all over. And these days, the user ID is usually an email address. So if they picked up on your social media and they know that you use Gmail and this is the Gmail account that contact me on email. Well, how many websites do you log in with that Gmail account? How many are there? There's tons of them. So if you don't have a multi-factor authentication, this is really easy to compromise. It may be leaked. So it's compromised, and we have these data breaches all the time. I mean, there's so many we can't keep up with them. Amazon just had a ton of data breaches. Something like 1 million people's accounts were exposed. Now, that's not such a big deal as it once was. It depends on what was in that data breach. For instance, if they were able to get user ID and passwords, they're going to tell you change your password. But they've also got multi-factor authentication going, and that has nothing to do with that data breach. So it makes it much more secure. It's high risk for you because it's just such a low effort for the attackers. Part of that is a brute force attack. So in other words, your Amazon, they pull up your Amazon page and they're like, okay, they use Bubba42 at Yahoo. That's their email. And I mean, that's their user ID. It's their email, is their user ID. And now we just need the password. So brute force attack is just try passwords. Just try them. Just keep going and going. And it never times out. So we'll get into that later. We'll talk more about that later, but that's why we need this multi-factor authentication. With multi-factor, you've got the password and usually a verification code. That's two independent factors that are needed. And it makes it dramatically harder to compromise that, as I've explained. So this small extra step gives you a large gain. So we got this security versus convenience. And that's something that throughout this course you're going to see. Like we'll hit topics and it'll be, well, why don't people do this? They should do this because it's not convenient. And right now there are people that have accounts that basically every time they log in, it says set up multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication, set it up. And they go, oh, not today. And they keep going on. And they don't realize, oh, that's a really high risk, really high risk. If you should set that up as soon as you get the opportunity. And I've known people that have lost, for instance, their Facebook account because it's like, hey, you need to set up two-factor, and they don't, and then they lose control of their account. All right, so why are non-experts targeted? Why are the people that aren't in cybersecurity the ones that are really, really targeted? Well, it's because you can say naive, but that's not really what it is. Normal people don't think of how bad things could go. They don't think of when they walk into a store who might be watching them at that point. And that's just security. That's not cybersecurity. Most people don't think about, oh, well, I didn't secure my Wi-Fi very well. Could there actually be somebody outside, someplace out there monitoring me? Yeah, there definitely could be. They don't think of those things. And that's good. That means you're not devious. You're not thinking, oh, what are these bad people doing? Let me think like them. But because of that, we tend to do things that are bad, like reuse passwords. Now, seriously, I've got like, I don't even know how many hundreds, probably like 600 different online accounts. And you may say, oh, that's a lot. Well, start thinking about it and you'll start going, oh, wow, I'm getting up there. I got a lot of these online accounts. And so having 600 different passwords is going to be difficult to do. So yeah, I do reuse passwords, but I'm really gauging what is this site doing? How important it is to me? Like, oh, I'm logging in because the news site wants to, show me my custom news or something. That's not too much of a big deal. But I'm not using that password in my bank account. And most notably for me, and we get into passwords later, so we'll talk in detail about it. I know I'm saying that a lot, but I want you to know we're getting there. But most notably, I'll have variations on passwords. So we often just reuse the same password across multiple things because we don't want to remember. And that means when there's a breach over here, all those are now, could be compromised. This is a huge one, delaying updates. Oh, yeah, we all know, oh, should I do this update on my phone? I don't know. You know what? It's okay to wait a week. However, all those updates, doesn't matter if it's your phone, computer, and I don't care what it is, Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, I don't care. If you delay too long, you're exposed because those updates now that are happening once a week for most products are because they found hacks. and they want to plug the hole. So we'll talk of detail how those viruses and malware work, but they plug those holes. And so if you've gone 6 months and never done the update, or a year because you're like, all those Windows updates just screw everything up. Well, that's not really true. Used to be true. This is very true. But now it's not. So yeah, wait a couple of weeks. If you're really worried about it, do some research online, but don't delay your updates. Most non-experts don't do their updates, and that's how they get hacked. As I said, they're unaware of the tactics of social engineering, how people are lying, impersonation tricks, all those things. And then they overtrust. Oh, yeah, I got this thing from Amazon. It says right there, I bought a $5,000 TV. That's not me. I'll click the link. That's overtrusting. That is a real email. Real world cybersecurity risks. Attacker finds your email, password in a data breach. Happens all the time, like I talked about. Uses the same credentials to log into your bank account. One compromised account leads to many others. Same weak password, both email and banking. Not a good idea. So that's just a real world example of what can happen. Again, two-factor authentication really limits this. However, if that email and password were in a data breach from your, Yahoo account or whatever, and you're using that on your bank, you shouldn't say, oh, well, I got two-factor authentication, I'll be safe. No, you need to go change that, because that still leaves them with only one step to do in order to get what they want. So just recap here, last little slide. Cyber safety protects you, your devices, accounts, and data. Your threat surface is everywhere. Home, devices, cloud. Cloud makes it everywhere. You need to figure out, as we go through this course, how do I balance security with convenience? What are the habits I can gain and do that will make it so I am secure and not have to go through massive trouble to be secure? Identify, as we start going through this, what are your digital assets and what is it worth to you in protecting those? Realize that attackers target easy victims, so you don't want to be that. You want to be the hard victim. Once they figure out, oh, this is difficult, they'll move on to somebody that's easier. Non-experts are common targets, so just be aware. You're not an expert in this, and they know that, and they know what you don't know. So being aware is your shield. Your journey does begin here. I am glad you're in the class. Thanks for looking at Unit 1 with me. Now it's time to move on and recap in the study guide so that you can eventually be ready and prepped to take that test. Now, in this unit, I won't have extra videos, but in the following units, you will see extra things that I would like to show to you that are beyond the material, or dive in past what you would actually be graded over on a test. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll talk with you later.